Hey everybody, welcome to the Crit House. I'm Jeff Larson. We are talking about the work of Nina Welsh-Kling, who has recently published a book called Duologues, and it's that book that we're going to be talking about today. Now, Nina was on the show fairly recently when she talked about another project, and interestingly enough, it was from that show that Ibarionex Perello discovered Nina Welsh-Kling and interviewed her on his fantastic program, The Candid Frame. Both of them are here with us today, along with Charis Ioannou and Aristide Economopoulos, which I know I mispronounced, and I'm sorry, Aristide. Here is that discussion with Nina Welsh-Kling and her book, Duologues. So, Nina, this is your second time you've been with us on a crit group. It's nice to have you back.
Different project.
Different project. I tell you, if folks haven't seen it, we're going to link to her earlier video before, because you have to see the work that she did when she was on the Crit House critique group previously. It's beautiful work. I want to print, and I'm going to put it right over there if I can get on one of those. So,
well,
Nina, tell us about.
Like this as much.
Yeah, so tell us about this work, and tell us about, like, so this is a published book. So
this
tell us about what. Book. So tell how would you like us to talk about that that work? What would you like us to provide input on, since it's finished in some way?
Right. So, I mean, I thought about the one part that I always like to open up a discussion to is the idea of how do you describe your project, and kind of the idea of an artist statement. And, you know, when you haven't read and you have not read my artist statement, when you look through the work, what do you see, and how would you describe the project, and what do you get from the project? And there's another point that I'm always interested in, is the idea of choosing black and white and color in a project, which is what I did, which, you know, initially in portfolio reviews, there was some feedback where I should never do this and I should do it. And I think these are interesting discussions to have. I mean, this project is ongoing, so I'm still creating duologues or diptychs, because I really enjoy going out, taking the photographs, and then using the images to give the viewer this idea of a scene to create your own story from. So all of these pairs should be seen as photographs that you read together, but it gives you to create your own story within the scene. And yeah, so any feedback, stronger pairs, or like this pair is always one I like to talk about, because it's not just about the graphic connections of the two, also the value of how they read together, but then it's also about people serving a higher purpose. So one person is serving the army, the nuns serving God. How do you feel about it? So the stories that emerge shouldn't just stop with, oh, I understand what the connection is, but what else is there beyond the obvious?
Well, I was going to say, so when I don't usually give feedback, because I'm not the educated, smart person in this room. So when I started taking photography seriously, and I saw diptychs and triptychs, I personally thought, I don't like it, because it said to me like that it's somebody's trying to make something of images that don't work. And I know that's wrong. I'm not saying that that's the case. But what you've done with your diptychs, you've taken incredibly strong images and told such a story with them by putting them together. I mean, they're individually strong, and they are more than double when you put them together. And I don't know if that's helpful at all, but and my reaction to your thought about color was that because I'm wrestling with this as well on a project that I'm working on, because I have color in black and white and can't figure out if I should put them together. But you make it sing. I mean, you can go back and forth. I mean, in your book, I think it's so well done, and I love it so much. I'm not sure that's helpful criticism. It's like I'm on the Nina fan train, but Ibarionex, maybe you can jump in and like sound smart as compared to my fawning love for her work.
You know, I'm right behind you with respect to this. The images are strong. The diptychs that she creates are incredibly effective. She avoids the trap of making it feel like it's repetitive. You know, some images you're able to make the connection as to what links these two images, either because of graphics or color or gesture. And then there are other pairings where it's not so obvious, and it challenges to sort of like figure out, okay, what's sort of, why are these two pictures together? And we've been talking about edit, with these various sessions today, and I feel like the edit is incredibly tight. I feel like the experience I have going through all these selections is very effective. Um, I'm intrigued by the choice to go vertical. Uh, that's kind of unusual, to be really dedicated to seeing that way. But it's just maybe just how she's inclined to see the world through her camera. Uh, but in terms of um, the criticism, I'm kind of hard pressed to come up with something, um, to to come up with any sort of real criticism, because I think it's a really effective, tightly edited body of work that I really enjoy.
I mean, I'm laughing while I was listening to the number system of 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm like, okay, so most of my photos are probably a 2 because it's not the documentary style. I mean, I do come from a fine arts background. I come from an architecture background. So I think the kind of structure and composition in the way I see definitely is very apparent, and also kind of my love for geometric shapes. And thank you, Jeff, for kind of pointing out that the individual photos to you are not trying to make up for one another, because when I chose these photos, I felt they all needed to stand on their own, and
And they do.
almost like in a good marriage, that they cannot really be dependent of each other, so they have to kind of help each other to build something new. And so I'm really I'm grateful that you actually see that in them, which sometimes you struggle when you put them together. It's like, what is a strong photo?
Yes. Charis, tell us what you think about Nina's work. We know last week we talked to you about your work and the edits and sort of combinations of things. What are you seeing in this work that positive or negative?
It's obvious Nina is more experienced than me, and this is a beautiful body of work, and it's a beautiful challenge to put to yourself to make it work, and also the fact that they're all vertical.
Yeah, the vertical is interesting because I think the horizontal is more of the storytelling way, because you kind of have this wider view and then you try to frame them together. I don't know why the vertical became my go-to, but I think I'm a left eye shooter, so it kind of, that's what I see. But also I think being an architect, the vertical has always been a strong perspective for me, the kind of up and down and looking at facades. So I cannot answer you why that has become my go-to format. It's easier sometimes to read a diptych when it's two verticals, because visually you can kind of connect them.
I agree, yeah.
Because like your two eyes kind of see, one eye sees one, and then you start to combine them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could you speak about the process in terms of coming up with the diptychs?
It was a class project, and when I created the first diptych, I don't know, it was kind of like a light went on, and I love the kind of mental exercise that it takes to take a photograph and then try to figure out what would work visually, storytelling, is there detail that could, and what kind of you respond to, and looking at that. and what else is created when you put these two images together. So if you would take this image on the left, you see the dollar bill, you see these other things that emerge. But then in combination with the woman, the meaning becomes something very different. So it's a
Totally.
different kind of
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah.
And I felt that was I was just intrigued by it, and I was intrigued by the different kind of storytelling that, I really stuck with it, and I felt my work, the more I did it, the more I love it. And I still do it. Like there are sometimes evenings where I just enjoy picking photos and trying to find a partner that I feel is strong.
Aristide, you are always so patient. You walk some of the same streets as Nina in New York. What do you think here?
What I love about I think it's just fascinating to see verticals too, because life is up and down at different planes. But starting off actually with the first picture we mentioned, I don't care if it's black and white or color, if does the picture communicate, that's the most important thing. And when you're doing a diptych or triptych, it's these 2 or 3 pictures which work well. And this is actually, I think, the only picture where you're playing off a black and white and a color. And I think this actually doesn't bother me. In general, I would have more of a problem though, but since the colored picture is rather monochromatic, it's rather simple in that sense. And then also that the picture, they're very similar though, but also very different what they say. I think it works well together. I think a problem would be if it's something very colorful, very visually color-wise complicated, and then you have a black and white picture, which is also makes it very, very simpler. That's would be harder. This to me is about shadows and light with just a splash of color. But in general, all the body of work, I could care less if it's black and white or color. Does the picture communicate? Because you're only in every other picture, you're only looking at black and white or color, and more importantly, is the picture, do they work together? Is it the same vision, same style? And
Yep.
To me, it's just beautifully graphic and them playing off each other, the use of color, the use of geometric design. To me, it's interesting. And you mentioned, I think, especially being a photojournalist, we use words though, but also the artist statement can really help something, obviously, but I think most of the time it's rather just BS, because we're in a visual medium, and does it visually pull you hard to you? Because I've gone to galleries and you read this art statement, it's all this deep, fluttery things. I'm like, this person should have just been a poet. These images don't connect, and they just, so to me, the artist statement could be a perspective, and I have got no problem with that though. But do the pictures, your soul? And I love how, like, for example, this picture with the nuns, and that it goes on a different level. There's the literal of what you see, but then it goes on who they are and what they are. And I think that's the strength of the photograph. You do have the graphic, check that off, the visual, but then it goes on this intimacy and who the humanity of the people are. And I think that's the success of that. The pictures themselves individually are rather strong, but then also when you pair them off each other, it remains something. And like Ibarionex, I think, mentioned, you can be very literal of the colors or the composition of pairing. You can scroll down, keep on scrolling, showing more photos, but then some pictures, I like a little whimsy, a little question, like, well, what's going on? I mean, this to me is brilliant, and it's just very subtle too. I don't think you necessarily had to hit your head over in some photographs of what the picture is, and then also something to me, which is like, this is just very monotone in the shape and the angles and styles. So you're really looking at pictures beyond of just what they are, but also on a deeper level, which I appreciate. And it's really smart in that sense, because you have to think the sum of the whole. And some pictures, you might have great photo, but if it's not paired against a good photo, it's going to fall flat because you are essentially asking the viewer to look at both at the same time. So whether that can hurt you or help you. I mean, that picture like this is just beautiful. I mean, it's just a simple design picture, and I think it's important. So these pictures are witty, they're fun, and they're really nice in that sense. Individually, some pictures I think are maybe a little weaker than others, you know, but in general, the body of work. I mean, I never would have thought that these two pictures, though, but the more I look at it, actually, it grows on me more too. And I like
Because it's like, you know, there's the composition of the repeat of the shape of the arm versus the handrail.
but like
So
for
there's
example, the handrail, that if you just show me as an individual picture, it wouldn't do that much for me, you know. But I see how they play off each other and they make both of them better.
Nina, I want to call out just one that gives me great joy. One diptych. This I didn't see this until we were just going through it. I mean, I didn't like focus on it until we were kind of going through them and see the images. And I just I don't know why it just makes me laugh. The pattern of the smoke versus the pattern of the tree. Love it. There's one. I mean, to be critical, this one doesn't do an awful lot for me as a diptych. Personally, of all of them, it's just like probably the weaker one. But that's I think that's like the only criticism I have. I love this body of work.
I mean, it's like when you sequence a book, or you know, in the book, it was interesting because there had to be a rhythm, just like we talked about music earlier. And
Yes.
you know, how do you make the sequence go? And so it starts out with a fairly, you know, the first one, and this is not the whole book. So
Yes.
like this is the introduction actually, where it's color black and white, more geometric, and then a more, and so this is easy and you're like, oh, I get it. And then you move through the sequence and it becomes more and more vague. And then there's kind of a sense of humor to bring you back. And then, you know, so this journey hopefully leads you through the sequence and keeps you interested to see the next photos, because I felt that, you know, if they're all kind of the same, or like if you get them all, it's kind of boring, because it's like, oh, I got it. Like I don't need to see the next. It's like she's doing the same thing. And so that was a challenge in kind of sequencing the pairs to reflect of how I walk through the city and what I see and how I see the city with my lens and my camera.
Like individually, these pictures are so different, but they work so well together. The
Yes.
dance of the partner, you know, and the graphicness of it. I love it, you know. Individually, I think they are strong individual pictures though. But I mean, it's that must have been hard getting everything together. And then to me, I think that's the art and the strength of this project was the editing.
But I think, you know, because I really fell in love with the editing and the process of it, I didn't find it as a chore. And when I presented it as a project to an editor, the project was done. Like there were no edits done by my publisher. It was more in sequencing and layout, but it like the pairs were set.
While shooting, were you thinking a lot about the narrative?
No, I really go out and kind of, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, I think, about street photography. Like, what are we attracted to when we go out, and why are we taking a photo of something that's in front of us? So I go out and I shoot my photos, and then I put them in a collection, and then I pick a photo where I feel like, that'd be an interesting story to tell with a pair. And I try to find the partner to the pair to set up the scene for the story. So none of them are ever shot to you know, preemptively find a partner for another shot. And some of them, you know, are 4 years old, some of them are shot this year. So there's a wide range of how they are temporally connected in terms of time and space and how they come together. And some are more poetic and some are more, you know, like straight on formally, and you just move past it. Well, but like, Nina, I like this one. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just gonna end like where it's the hair and the hair, but it's not just the hair. It's all about, you know, this is a hat. So how do we feel about fur and PETA and, you know, animals on clothing? So if you want to spend time with the story, you can go way past the initial pairing.
Well, Nina, thank you for showing the work. The book
Thank
is
you.
is
Thank you so
Duologues.
much.
We'll link out to how you can get that book, and we'll also provide a link to see Nina's previous discussion for another body of work that we had on the Crit House. I want to thank you all, Ibarionex,
Thank you.
Nina, Welsh-Kling, Charis Ioannou, and Aristide. Thank you all for joining us here again on the Crit House. Last week of the Street Catreat group next week, and we're going to take a look at the work of Ibarionex Perello. Thanks for watching the Crit House.